Hi, Joe Cerrone. Welcome to CAD 230 Introduction to Solidworks in our weekly Zoom classroom meeting. Okay, so as we take a look at what we're working on, we've released Module 8, which is Chapter 9, and it's on modeling threads. And so you're to do Lab 8A, 8B, and 8C. If we take a look at these labs, the labs are kind of geared towards creating these different threaded features. And so we'll use the insert sketch line thread feature. And they don't use the thread feature on everything. They do a couple of the exercises the old way where they create a helix with the pitch, which would be the number of threads per inch equal to the helix number of turns. And so I was kind of hoping they would do everything with the thread tool. I'm not sure what's going on. It looks like I've got to probably relog back in here. But I do have this on another one, so I guess we'll look at it on this one. So this is my older book. But essentially what you'll do is you'll create the geometry for the profile, and then you'll revolve that. And then once you've got that revolved, what we'll do is we'll go through and we'll use this threading tool. And so as we look at the object itself, here it is. And if we backtrack ourselves, we can kind of see here's the original sketch, which we revolved. And then once we have that revolved, what we did was to apply this thread tool. And I really like it. It's great for using 3D printing and 3D printing threads, because what it'll do is it'll go through and allow you to go through and kind of dial in everything that you need. And so you need to set this up for an inch die, 1.25 by 12 threads per inch, right hand thread. And then what you do is you go through and you would tag this front face right here and then this rear face. Now I'm not sure if this one is properly done. It looks like it is. No, it's not. And so if I was to look at this one, I would say this one isn't going to work because it needs to have the thread offset. And to fix that, what I would do is I would edit this thread and then enable an offset. And then when you enable that offset, what you want to do is you want to enable that offset for, let's maybe make it 0.125. And it's got to be on the other side so that it is reversed. There we go. And that way you can spin the nut onto the component itself. Does a really great job. Once you have the thread created, all you do is mirror the part and mirror the feature. And you're welcome to 3D print these if you'd like to go ahead and try them out. All right, so that's the first exercise. And then the second exercise is to model the threads for this nut. And so essentially they do this kind of in an old school method, but let's see if they call out the thread pitch and diameter. They call out the pitch. But they don't really give the actual thread spec. And so with this one, you'll draw a 6-sided polygon. You'll extrude the base, and then you'll put this little curve on here, and then you'll sweep that and cut it. And then once you've done that, you'll create a plane on the end of it, and then you will create a helix with a pitch of 105 and 7 revolutions. and then we'll create this pitch profile. And if you've ever cut threads on a lathe, you'll know that a threaded insert is 60 degrees. And so what they've done is they've calculated out the depth of the thread, and then they put this radius on it. And then what they do is they pierce that to the helix and sweep cut it. So if we take a look at this one right here, and we kind of back this one up, here's the original shape of the nut. You know, we basically just took a sketch, and then once we have that sketch created, we extruded it, and then we revolve cut that with this little sketch on the edge right here. And then that revolves around the axis and cuts it all the way around. Created a plane on the end of it. And then we created the helix. And then we created the cut to sweep as a sketch right here. We set that up with the pierce relationship. And then what we did was we swept cut it along this helix, and it goes through and creates the cut, which is a much more difficult way to create the threaded insert than it would be to create it with the thread wizard or the thread tool. And then lastly, they have these other components. And this is actually an assembly, which they didn't show us how to create assemblies yet. But the next chapter, chapter 10, goes into assemblies. And they're not real difficult to figure out once you have the components created for that. But essentially what we did here was to create these different components. And so here we would start with this piece right here. And we have two pieces. We have the sketch right here, and then the part that we are going to sweep around that sketch. We sweep it, chamfer the end of it, place a helix, and then use that same technique of creating a sketch for that sweep cut. And then we sweep cut it around the part. I'm not sure what this last extrude was. Same with this piece right here. We go through and we create the geometry for that. Then we revolve it. Create an extruded cut feature to remove this part out of the revolve part. Create another shape to extrude cut. Add our chamfers. Add our fillets. Create a plane on the end of the part. Create that helix, and then create the geometry sweep cut that. And then we go through and mirror the part, or mirror the thread to the other side. I think if I was personally going to do it myself, I would just use the hole wizard and the thread wizard to put those in rather than to do all that helix stuff. And then once you have these parts, what you need to do is you need to create an assembly model. And so we'll be creating assemblies, but essentially we start off with this first piece right here, which is the fixed piece. It's not letting me go back. But essentially, we bring in this component first, and then we would add in the threaded components, and then we would add a mate, making those coincident and concentric to those threads. And we'll go over that next week as far as to be able to create assembly models. So as we take a look at the course and where we're heading with it, right now we're into, I believe we're in our 9th week. We're on chapter 9. And then if we take a look at the D2L system under content, let's view this as a student. We've got module 8, which we're starting today. It's due in 2 weeks. And then module 9, we'll start doing bottom-up assemblies. And what bottom-up assemblies mean is that you already have the parts drawn, and then we're putting them together kind of like Lego. And we'll go through and we'll create mates, which are how we fix them together or how we glue them together. And we'll create these relationships to allow things like the gate to swing open and things like that. And so once we get into module 9, it goes pretty quick. I think we have 11 or 12 complete modules, and then we go into Christmas. And so Thanksgiving and Christmas are coming up rather quickly. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording, go back to the main splash page, and open things up for questions.